Hi, Steve Hole again from TKC Mag and totalkitcar.com. You've joined us at the Total Kitcar History Files series on the Total Kitcar YouTube channel. Um, this one's part of a trilogy on Coachbuilt Minis and mini conversions back into the depths of time. So if you haven't heard the first two parts of that, you might want to seek them out on our page. But if you're waiting for part three, then let's get straight into that. If you haven't already done so, here comes the business bit. Haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. I think I was looking the other day. I'm writing this. I'm always in magazine mode. I'm recording this at late January 2025. I should stipulate that. And I was looking at the figures again the other day, which they might as well be upside down on a page as far as I'm concerned. However, I did pick up one part. I think we used to have a 22% of people viewing our video that's actually subscribed. Come on, guys, we can do better than that, surely. It has gone up a little bit, I have to say, but we're still below 30%. So if you haven't already done so, please click that subscribe button and the little all thing that comes down with it, because then you'll be sure to be notified next time an episode of the History Files series drops. Hark at me with the modern lingo. And even if you don't want to listen to it, at least you could subscribe, and then when you got notified, just press delete. But it would help us out greatly, and as would hitting that like button, that thumbs up button. That's a fantastic one to help us really help us out with that. We have got, and I shouldn't really say this, should I? But there is some plans coming up. We're going to be doing some factory visits, so rather than just take my notebook and my camera when I go and visit a manufacturer, it seemed pretty obvious that I should put my iPhone on video record as well. So we'll be having a little guided tour of various manufacturers coming up. I've got a few visits to do, so that'll be a good one. We can do it on it only needs to be a low budget way. Don't expect cameraman, sandwich runner, tea maker, the bloke with a woolly thing that looks like, I think, has a microphone on it. We're not having any of that. It's a one-man job, but it might just break it up a little bit and give you a little bit of insight into what these guys make. The first one that's going to come up, or one of them anyway, will be on Protect Shocks. They're good guys. They supply half of the kit car industry with their dampers and springs, and they're really good guys down there in Westbury, Melksham, or somewhere like that. And we'll be visiting them very soon. Anyway, let's crack on. Part three. We got as far as M, really, so I think we finished M. We're now on to N. So we're going to talk about a little thing called the NJC Mini. And NJC stood for nothing more imaginative than Nick, John and Charles. They were based in Kingsbury, Northwest 9, and they had ex-wood and picket trimmer in their staff, and he was described as being a genius of the needle and the sewing machine. His name was Maurice MacDonald. Their Mini, unsurprisingly, was inspired by the wooden picket Margrave, but it was equally highly specified, included speakers in the headrests, no less. Rolls-Royce style headlining, had a digital dashboard. How they did that for the day, but they managed a Rolls-Royce, an Aston Martin style digital dashboard, electric windows, and a sunroof with sundial glass, which I think was by Triplex back in the day. Mentioned air conditioning, and it had a telephone by all accounts. 1977, it had a mobile telephone. It was probably fitted in the boot, given the size of how big the battery must have been, but it had a phone anyway. Vauxhall Ventura headlights, which was all the rage back in those days, I think, and the body shell was deseamed. It was pricey though, because £7,000, which equates today, allowing for inflation, for £30,500. If you compared that £7,000 with a Mini Cooper S of the day, which cost 2,428, so that's probably why they didn't sell very many. Then we come on to the Ogle SX, or Ogle 1000 SX. This was produced between 1962 and 64. It came from the iconic design company, founded and initially run by David Ogle. David was killed in a lightweight version of the SX. on his way to Brands Hatch to give a demonstration of the car, ironically, one day, and it was in Welling, I think, that he had his accident, and that kind of put the company, understandably, into a tailspin. Dr. Tom Carron was appointed as the late Dr. Tom Carron, another genius and a gentleman, was appointed as managing director. Two other directors came on board. John Ogier, Buxley Chickens was his one of his enterprises, and Sir John Whitmore, the famous racing driver of in the 60s. They came on board as directors. They decided that they didn't want to carry on manufacturing cars, possibly for obvious reasons, but they did finish. I think there were 69 SXs sold, and whatever they had left to finish when David was tragically killed, they finished. So the customers all got them. But I remember reading something that John Ogier had reported to have said later on or subsequently, and he said that they may as well have given every customer £300 to go away rather than produce the cars they did. So it wasn't particularly, excuse me, a happy venture for them, I don't think. That car was later revised, and we've covered that under F, and marketed as the Fletcher GT by boat builder and model shop entrepreneur Norman Fletcher. I always think of Norman Stanley Fletcher when I say that name. Sorry. If you're under 50, ask your dad or your granddad what Norman Stanley Fletcher refers to. But anyway, moving swiftly on, and Carol is actually giggling in the background, and she's trying to put me off, I think. But I'm gonna go on like a soldier and trooper that I am. We move on to a suitably excellent Coachbuilt Mini in the Radford Mini DeVille. It was Hooper Motor Services, and we've covered them under the H's. They began the craze really for luxurious minis after Peter Sellers commissioned that famous car for his then girlfriend Britt Eklund with the Rolls-Royce type wicker sides on it. Hooper actually made a decision, rightly or wrongly. It was a moral decision on their part, and I've always admired them for it. They built 10 and they refused to make any more. They could have probably sold 110. Hayley Mills was very upset that she couldn't get one, I think. But she went elsewhere. I think Chris Humberston built her one. But Radford decided that Howard Radford decided that he might as well fill the void. So he kind of stepped into that. Howard Radford Coach Builders Limited, to give the company the correct name. They were former Rolls-Royce and Bentley dealers and had been coach building luxurious limousines since 1947. So they were well placed to, when we're talking luxurious, they were well placed to get involved in that market. Dear old Harold, he liked the idea of building special minis, and he came up with the idea for what became known as the Mini DeVille. And it was available initially in three forms: an entry-level version called the Deluxe, which was quite interesting, but that was the entry level. There was the Bel Air, which that one did actually have the wicker style side treatment, and the Grand Lux, which was adorned with every extra known to man, including Connolly leather on the seats and electric windows and very thick pile Wilton carpeting, probably shag pile in that one. The latter was priced at £1,088 in 1963, which, in case you're wondering, allowing for inflation in today's money, equates to £15,929, which seems like a bargain to me. Obviously doesn't allow for other factors, so it probably, once you took all that into account, it would be priced accordingly, I would think. They did a Mark II, which featured several amendments, and then they announced a DeVille GT, which, as the name suggests, was a sportier version. That came in 1965, and it featured a one-piece steel hatchback, which was a useful addition or useful conversion. Ringo Starr, the Beatles drummer, bought one, and you may recall from the film, I can't remember which film it was. Could have been Meet the Beatles, actually, but anyway, whatever film it was, the other guys in the band, they all bought one. So there were 4 identical black Radford Mini DeVilles running around. And I think, one of those films, I'll be corrected by someone that knows about the Beatles and knows about films more than I do. Mark III of 67 was said to have had 63 enhancements over the outgoing Mark II. But then Initially, Radford used the services of Speedwell for their engine tuning requirements. Before, I think when Sprinzel went off to do his own thing, they moved their engine business to Downton Engineering with Daniel Richmond and his Mrs. Bunty, who called a spade all right, but I think she called a spade a sledgehammer actually, from what I've read. And then they moved back to London with it and Taurus Performance. They were in North London, by the way, Radford, Park Royal. They moved their engine tuning requirements back to a company called Taurus Performance Tuning, who ironically I think were opposite John 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 Sprinzel in a London Muse. So they kind of went full circle, really. There's some various other little things that came along with that car. The hatchback was changed from steel to GRP. And in 1967, I think they might have had a strike or something because they lost a lot of their key staff to their deadly rivals, Wooden Pickett, who were just round the corner in Park Royal. In 1968, they were bought out, and the company name changed to Radford, Freestone and Webb, who again were coach builders of the day, I think, Freestone and Webb. And then they kind of just sadly just fizzled out, really, but they certainly left a superb legacy behind them anyway. Then we move on to some great names coming up. We move on to the Redbird Mini, produced by FI Craft Laminates of Great Wakering in Essex, and that was around for about as long as a mayfly. Featured a weird-looking droop snoot front end and was priced at £39.50. I'm not sure how many or if they sold any at all. The one that did sell, or the panels for it did sell in quite good numbers, was the Ridgeway Sports Mini, and that came from a fiberglass company, excuse me, based in Farnham, in Surrey, called Glass Fibre Engineering, and they made a replacement GRP front end for the Mini, complete with a pre-fitted mesh grille, and that was at the princely sum of £24. Then we come on to, I mentioned Haley Mills and Chris Humberston. We then come on to his Scorpion Mini, produced by Chris Humberston, the noted designer and very talented man. Late Chris Humberston as well, by the way. And he'd noticed the scene with Radford and Wooden Pickett and the Hooper Mini. And of course, Haley Mills wanted to buy, excuse me, Margrave Mini. Well, she wanted to buy the Hooper. And she then wanted to buy a Harold Radford car, but couldn't. She wanted to buy a Mini DeVille, but for whatever reason, she couldn't get one of those. So, I beg your pardon, rewind that. She wanted to buy a Margrave, but for whatever reason, she couldn't get one of those, despite her father, the legendary actor Sir John Mills, working on her behalf, but it couldn't happen. So, Chris Humberston built one of his Scorpions for her. And notable that car because I think it used the original grille, but he used it upside down. Williams and Pritchard did the first body for Humberston before reproductions were produced in GRP and sold accordingly. And the Haley name, it was the Scorpion Haley. The Haley name was derived from actress Haley Mills, of course. Customers for the customer version, the reproductions would get special Haley badges to go with their Scorpion kit. And I don't know, Humberston was probably being tongue-in-cheek when in an interview years later he reckoned he'd sold thousands of them, to quote him, thousands being the word. I'm not sure if that's true. He certainly had a deal with a company in Spain, because I think it was hard for BL to get minis, or for them to get minis into Spain, for whatever regulatory reason. So Humberston filled that void with his Scorpion, but I'm not sure if it's thousands, for sure, definitely not. Then we come to kitcar manufacturer and ex-Lotus chief engineer, no less, Brian Luff of Status Motor Company. Now he had, as well as doing the kits he produced that were mostly Mini based, we've covered them, or we'll cover them in another video. He had several nice little sidelines, did Brian, always tongue in cheek, I think. He did coil spring kits for Minis, conversions, which did away with the hydroelastic, and he sold a good number of those. He also, moving from the sublime to the ridiculous, he sold talking about thousands, he sold thousands of best described as rust stickers. So you bought your sticky back plastic stickers off him that gave the impression of rust. So you could stick it, and he thought it was funny, and people, and the joke was that you stuck your rust stickers onto glass fibre bodied cars. I think his strapline was that so owners of fiberglass bodied cars could now enjoy rust too, which I thought was quite amusing. And then, of course, his piece de la resistance, which lasted for about 5 minutes, but sold in good numbers while it was available. He did a replica Rolls-Royce grille for the Mini that looked fantastic. Cost 20 quid, which I think I'd love to have bought 200 of those and put them in a warehouse somewhere. Of course, customers loved them. Everybody else found it very amusing, and it was a bit of a laugh. But of course, Rolls-Royce went nuts and sent him a very firmly worded cease and desist or else letter. Move on to the letter T. We've got one in letter T. Tickford Mini, and that was run at the time by Simon Saunders of Aerial Motors fame. These days, the Atom and such like, Nomad. And he was running Aston Martin's Tickford division for a time in the 80s and was the man behind the Tickford Mini. Allegedly, and again, I should ask Simon about this because I know him quite well, and he's always very kind, and we'll sit down with a cup of tea and have a chat. Came about apparently because a mystery customer ordered a Coachbuilt Mini from Tickford, which in 85-86 cost 50 grand to build, so it said. They then, understandably, decided to offer sort of, I suppose, slightly diluted commercially available replicas of that car. Had stacked headlights, which was popular at that time with convert modifiers. They were like rectangular from a Vauxhall Ventura probably. Had a special grille, lovely burr walnut interior. I saw one at the Classic Show at the NEC once. Lovely burr walnut interior trim and leather seats. I think there could have been as many as 10 of those sold. Then we go to the very interesting Wild Goose Brent, produced between 1964 and 67. This was a camper van based on a Mini, floor pan and all. It was quite interesting because, excuse me, always the rule is to bring a glass of water when you're doing one of these. It never fails to catch me out when I don't, so I do apologise. And this was an interesting one, the Wild Goose. You literally drove your minivan, or you reversed your minivan into a GRP camper van section, if you will, which was like strapping a motorhome to your minivan. The picture will kind of explain how that worked, and apparently it was very good. It had a vertically extending body. Once you got the main body on, the body extended, had a little push button on top of the dashboard, and it gave it like a pop top roof system. Loads of space apparently inside. You had a customer in the 60s got a dining table, a wardrobe, a bed, a 2-burner Elton hot plate, and 4 seats for the dining area. So it sounded like a home away from home. Designed by a chap called Ted Bennett, and it was aimed at retired couples who like minis and exploring, according to the advert. A Mark II version called the Popular 2 had a vinyl roof, and then there was a Popular 3.5 variant. I'm not sure where they got the half from, and that had an extra single berth or single bed, so you could take the family with you. And then there was the Brent Super VEB, which was apparently the fully luxury laden edition. It was available as a kit, and you bought that from Wild Goose Worthing Limited as a conversion kit for a minivan at £425, or from 1966. I don't know why they didn't do it before, but from 66 they offered fully built versions from £840 or £998 for the Super VEB luxury version. Oh, thank you. Sorry, just interrupted by a glass of water. Shame it's not a cup of beer, but there we go. Moving on to another very famous Coachbuilt Mini called the Margrave, made by Wood and Pickett. in the coach building capital of Britain, Park Royal, and also home for Guinness UK, I think, wasn't it, for a long time? Anyway, former Hooper employees, Bill Wood and Les Pickett. Their normal work, or run-of-the-mill, well, there was nothing run-of-the-mill about Wood and Pickett, that's for sure. But their normal work in the 60s was producing special trimming jobs on Rolls Royces and making the interiors, no less, for the Ford road-going GT40s. I'm not sure. I think we may have gone wrong with the Scorpion. So, but I'm not sure whether Hayley Mills did actually manage to get a Margrave. Maybe she got a Margrave and she also bought a Scorpion. I'm not sure, but certainly that the Sir John Mills connection certainly put Wood and Pickett and the Margrave in front of more people than not, really. They certainly did want to buy a Hooper. They were one of the celebrity guests, or sorry, celebrity clients who really wanted a Hooper, but the first 10 managed to get that, and that was it, really. WP Wood Pickett called their Mini the Margrave, and it was direct rival to Radford's Mini DeVille. And again, it had every imaginable extra fitted stuff like extra lights, bright work, reclining leather seats, very deep pile carpets, walnut fascia for the dashboard, electric windows. It cost less than the Radford at £950, which equates to $13,460, allowing for inflation today. Although many of the extras or the options that you could add to a Radford came as standard on the Mini DeVille, so it probably was half a dozen of one and 6 of the other, really. They also offered a faux Landau type rear conversion with a padded vinyl roof and like a porthole rear window, which the custom car fraternity liked on various cars back in the day. When BMC launched the Mini Clubman, Wood and Pickett soon worked their magic on that one too, fitting that one with their Vauxhall Ventura stacked headlights, and it even had a section Vauxhall Victor radiator grille. Section being, in this instance, it was cut down to scale to fit the gap on the Mini. They gained some real traction, Wood and Pickett, when Radford's erstwhile MD, excuse me, Len Minshall, and the company's marketing director, Eddie Collins, upped and left Radford and joined Wood and Pickett. And in doing so, it was said that they brought a lot of Radford's customer base with them. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but there certainly were plenty of celebrities ordering Margraves. It's probably the main Mini magnet in terms of celebrity custom and appeal. Mick Jagger was said to have bought one, Sir Elton John, or pre-knighted Elton John, and even the Sultan of Brunei are said to have bought Margraves. The prices for top spec cars cost £2,500, which is about £35,000 in today's money, and several reputably cost over £10,000, which, for those that are interested, equates to about 141,000, probably nearer 142,000 today. That version was known as the Margrave Elite and was distinguished by Mercedes-Benz headlights. They had Wood and Pickett had several requests for a hatchback conversion, but they never relented and never agreed to build one. Although one wealthy customer, I think a Belgian customer, asked for and got an opening rear door, and that became known as the Gordon Mini, and replicas of that were planned, but I don't believe that came to anything either. You can read all about these cars in Jeroen Boug's excellent series of books called Maximum Mini, and I recommend those. I'm not sure if the first 2 editions are still available. Certainly the first one will be out of print because it was very sought after. But and of course we've still got a few posters. We bought a couple of years back. We bought the remainder of Jeroen's stock of Maximum Mini posters, which is again, if you're interested, we do have some available. If you contact inquiring about that, we can hook you up with one of those. We've still got a few left, and they're brilliant things. They've basically got illustration on, it's an A1, I believe, and it's every or as far as Jeroen knew, every mini based kit car that has been produced. illustrated or photographed and stuck on the poster. It's a brilliant thing. Every mini fan should have one. So we've got some of those if you're interested. Not many, but we've got some. And it'll be a first come, first serve thing. From memory, I think we could 16 quid, I think, plus a bit of postage if you're overseas in the UK. UK will be free postage. Overseas, we'd have to add a bit of airmail to it, depending on where you are. But again, if you're interested, we can tell us if you fancy one, and we can sort that out accordingly. Before we finish, a couple of little extra points to add, really, extra bit of extra value for you, really. In my opinion, one that got away, if we're talking about mini coach builds and mini conversions, one that got away and should have done better than it did was the Alto Boxer. That company, that name Alto, the company was run by brothers Dave and Tommy Gornall in Lancashire, I think. And they were quite well known for the quality of their glass fibre, and particularly for doing the bodies for, if you're familiar with the Beaufort, they produced the vast fiberglass bodies for that car, and lots of them. And the Beaufort was always known for its fine glass fibre work. And they also, of course, produced a car that was years ahead, really was years ahead of its time, the Alto Duo, which I don't know if anyone at MCC or Smart was aware of the kit car industry in the 80s or had noted the Alto Duo, but it was so far ahead of its time, and it could have been an 80s version of a Smart 4.2, I'm sure it could, but and it should have sold in those numbers as far as I'm concerned. Lots of people rate that car very highly, but the Boxer was a very underrated thing. Didn't, I think, sold a handful, and I'd certainly check that out, Google that, and see what comes up. And we're going to put a photo here. Neil will put a photo of the Alto Boxer and see what you think about that one. But people often ask, what was the first? We may as well deal with this here. Several people have asked what was the first mini-based kit car. Some conjecture on that, but the train of thought really always settles at a project or a little car called the Butterfield Musketeer in 1961. So he was the guy that did it, a guy called Richard Butterfield, was quite quick out of the traps there, when bearing in mind the Mini came out in 59. And I'm pretty confident, and so are other experts, I'm sure Jerome would agree, I think he has, we've spoken about it before, that the Butterfield Musketeer could well be the first mini-based kit car. His little project was offered as a coupe or convertible. He used all new Mini engines, either the 850 or the 848 or the 1000, and other components from the Mini, obviously, and they were all mounted into described as a strong multi-tube chassis. Don't know if it's true or not, but an ex-Hooper Motors trimmer is said to have done the trim and interior for Butterfield. He was based at his father's Dovecote nursery business in Nazing in Essex. Only 4 were made, but I guess that was down to price, because at 848 quid indeed, it cost twice as much as a brand new Mini in 1961. Not particularly conducive for good sales, I wouldn't have thought. It is definitely a pioneer, and it was the first of many hundreds of mini-based kit cars, as we know. But obviously the later kits, or the kits that came after it, were the ones that really cashed in on the Mini's obvious appeal. But it'll go down, and it has its place in history. By 1963, Richard was done with his Musketeers. Shame he didn't sell three Musketeers. He sold, well, there was 4 Musketeers, I think, at one stage. So anyway, quite apt, really. Anyway, that's enough of that waffle. Thanks for visiting. I look forward to welcoming you again next time. Thank you for giving me a chunk of your day to listen to me going on about Coachbuilt Minis, part 3. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having a great day, and I look forward to welcoming you again next time. Many thanks for visiting. Thank you.